3, 2, 1.
Hi guys, my name is Drew Grant. I'm the managing editor here at Passionfruit, and with me we have a very special guest to kick off our interview series. It's Taylor Lorenz, the author of the upcoming book, Extremely Online, The Untold Story of Fame, Influence, and Power on the Internet. Hi Taylor.
Hi.
I guess easiest place to start here is New York. That's where we both come from. And what do you think the relationship is that people don't understand about New York and social media?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I think now the whole creator economy and influencer boom is so synonymous with LA.
Mm-hmm.
But it really started in New York in the early 2000s with blogger culture. And, it was called Silicon Alley back then. And it was, a lot of people obviously all over the country, but especially New York and DC, politics bloggers, tech bloggers, building these audiences on the internet and kind of monetizing.
Do you think in the ways that things have changed in the last decade, you and I have been around for some of it, how do you think the internet culture and the idea of influence and influencer and creator has changed in the past decade?
Yeah, it is radically changed. I mean, I think even now we barely have words to describe it. I wanted to write this whole thing in the intro of just the language that we've used to try and talk about some of this stuff in my book, because it started, I don't know if you remember when people were called fame balls.
Micro fame ballers.
Yeah. Or celebrities.
I don't think I've ever heard that one, but yes.
My God. I literally saw another article in Wired using it yesterday. It was, that was a term for a while. They also called it net fame. And then, it really wasn't until YouTube purchased Next New Networks, which was an early MCN, that the word creator was even used in the context of a YouTube star. And that was in 2011. So it was, there was just a lot of platform specific language, like, bloggers, Instagrammers, no, they used to say Tumblr-ebrities. Tumblr-lebrities.
I'm glad we got rid of that one.
It's like a tongue twister. It's just kind of, I think, this evolving understanding of online fame and online attention and kind of these people that can wield it really effectively and like what to call them.
I think that's so interesting because language is, I think, one of the most important things when we're talking about this online space. I heard you in an interview, I think from a year ago, maybe, talk about how creator isn't really a term that exists to describe the difference between them and influencers. It's about the idea of it not being platform specific.
Exactly. So the word influencer is it means the same thing as creator.
Oh, okay.
The way it emerged is that influencer was always a term in the marketing industry. I mean, even back in the 90s, they talked about influencer marketing, but it was more these like key figures, for key people. And so when the advertising dollars and the marketing dollars in the mid 2010s really shifted into the online creator industry, people adopted the term influencer because that was a marketing industry term. And it was platform agnostic. This was also, that same year was the year that Vine fell. And so people who were Viners were suddenly making content on Instagram and YouTube, and these platform specific terms didn't stick. So people use the term influencer. We didn't flip back until creator until 2021 when all the tech people discovered this industry. A lot of them, I think, were eager to distance themselves from all the commentary that they had made declaring influencers over and saying all this stuff. And also because influencer was perceived as feminized, it's because it's synonymous with marketing. A lot of people associate when you say the word influencer with women.
Oh, interesting.
Because again, women pioneered this entire industry, which my book, also gets into.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, again, when all this stuff really, after the pandemic hit, everyone's online. You had Silicon Valley people talking about the creator economy, which is a term that they kind of just started using, which is a great, it is an effective term. And I do think that the term creator is sort of better than influencer in a lot of ways. And it did come from Next New. But I mean, I think time and time again, as my book shows, women people of color and LGBTQ people were really the ones that were on the forefront of this industry because they were the ones who were shut out of traditional media and they were the ones shut out of traditional entertainment. And so they were the first to turn to the internet and start building audiences.
So I think that's really interesting because we say terms like creator economy, going back to the language idea. And that's usually, I think, again, from an outside looking in perspective of the idea of marketing and how do you sell these people as brands. But what about the creator labor element of it? Or like how much of this is like the creator side economy and like how much of money are people paying back into being a creator?
Yeah, well, I think creator is a good term actually as we think about this as like a labor issue, because I think influencer, it's kind of nebulous. Creator, it makes it very clear that you're generating something of value. According to a recent report from Goldman Sachs, this is set to be a $500 billion industry. And I think it barely captures that. I mean, YouTube came out with some numbers recently saying that YouTubers alone contribute, I think it was like 35 million annually to our GDP. And I think there's this growing effort to try and quantify that, but it's hard because these are all individual businesses, right? And so if you think of like a big creator like David Dobrik or something, right? It's not just the money that he earns from YouTube. It's what is Dobrik Pizza earning, or what is this like broader sort of companies that form around these people? What is the economic impact of all of that? And it's massive.
I mean, along with the Goldman Sachs article, I think simultaneously Citibank came out with a similar study that was a way more disheartening because it said that unlike, the 80-20 rule that is already kind of BS to begin with, this one said that in the influencer creator economy, like 95% of the creators are making 5% of the income. And like 5% of the creators are basically getting 95% of the pie. So when we talk about creator economy, I think there's a reason that brands and giant companies are looking towards that 5%, the Mr. Beasts and everyone. But, is there sustainable living as a creator, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like the biggest misconception. And I think we have this understanding in other industries. Like if you say, I want to be a musician, right? That doesn't mean that you're going to be Rihanna or, Lady Gaga or something, right? Like there's this understanding of how difficult it is to make it to that top 1%. But I think these tech companies have done a very effective job of convincing people that it's actually quite easy to make it and that they can easily just, start posting and you'll get to the top. That's not true. It's like, as you said, the majority of people can barely make a living. That said, I do think that we're moving to a better place. I mean, 5 years ago, it was really difficult to launch your own merch company. I think like the rise of all these e-commerce platforms like Shopify and companies like Fanjoy that cater specifically to helping creators launch lines, or companies like Pietra, which are basically a startup that's been very popular that sort of connects you with different wholesalers. So you can create like
It's very cool.
It's like a marketplace of like white label products that allows you to. So, and then you have things like Substack and other platforms that have this more direct monetization model so that you don't have to rely on ads. And, I do think that people are patching together a living, especially because there's no economic certainty in the actual economy, So it's like, is it unstable to try and make a living on the internet? Yes. But is it just as unstable to try and pay your dues at some company that could go bankrupt tomorrow? Yes.
Absolutely same thing.
So unfortunately, that's our broken capitalist system. But it is, I do think that it's shifting. And also, I think as we change conversations and understand this more and more as a labor issue, though, there will be more protections and benefits and things for these creators.
I've read a really interesting interview, I think, with you that I think took place last year. So correct me if the issues have changed since then. But it was about how people use this online space, the creator space, not just to monetize, but also to find community, especially during COVID, that this was a sort of the idea of creator also became this idea of a creator space, or like Patreon became a place that you could have a Discord and a bunch of people with different interests can flock to you and just start talking to each other. I mean, how important is that element of being a creator, like that you can maybe just do it as a side thing, but you're really just trying to find a home or a group or a tribe to be with?
Yeah, it's about community. I mean, I think the most effective creators are really good community builders, and community is really key. I think with the rise of the quote unquote influencer and this sort of mass marketing approach of like, just get as many followers, even if you have to buy them as possible. You want that number to go up. Now, in the past couple of years, I think we've all seen that those metrics are all nonsense. And what really matters is just a community of fans, because those are the people that you can, one, it helps you monetize, but also it helps those people bond to you by meeting each other. Like it's sort of these little, and I think that's really important. And I think that's something that traditional media has always failed at, is that element of community. And so I think it's really crucial going forward, because people want community. We're more lonely than ever. And that's why they're turning to these types of people.
I wonder, like, when I was at .la, I wrote this, or I had somebody write this piece about the Carter agency, which was that one that was pretending to represent both the influencers, like as their manager, but then also pretending to be the brands and taking the biggest part of the cut. And they're mostly targeting women of color, creators of color. And you touched on this a little bit earlier. They were the original women and people of color were the original kind of influencers. I mean, how much do you think that space has changed, developed? I mean, what can sort of be said about where we are today about diversity in the creator space?
Yeah, well, we've evolved so much because now everyone wants to be an influencer or content creator. So there is more diversity in terms of like the people creating content. I think it runs the gamut, but the systemic inequalities are there. I mean, systemic racism is a huge problem in this country. And we know that these tech platforms are built and created by, cis, white, straight guys. And they're built to reward those types of people. So, you see a lot of people of color, women. I mean, it's misogyny is been, and this is a core theme of my book, is just like the level of misogyny and online hate that women are subject to. And that's still a huge problem that these tech companies never care to address. And it ends up pushing a lot of big female creators out of the industry. So when you look at the most successful creators today, the same guys that these Silicon Valley people love to hype up, it's a bunch of boring, straight white guys. No hate to them. What they've done is amazing. But I just wonder if we had more online safety tools and better algorithms, what people could be, could also make it.
Well, and the gig labor of it all, meaning that like mental health resources and facilities, the idea that you might be able to, take a break from the internet if you needed it, like, you have to keep producing, you have to keep grinding. So what would you say is there a half-life to being a creator, or is there like a lifespan? Is there a life expectancy for being a creator on the internet? Or at a certain point, do you just burn out and you have to take a step back?
Yeah, I think any public-facing job is really difficult to maintain for any kind of level of time. There's a reason why I think people in entertainment burn out as well. I mean, people like to say between 2 to 5 years is like the maximum that you'll have cultural relevance.
Oh my. No.
But it's hard. I think it's true. I mean, you and I worked in media for a long time, and I do see a similar thing in media, right? Where like you have these people where they hit a cultural sort of touchstone and they're very relevant, and they have this short window to kind of leverage those opportunities. And sometimes they'll leverage them and they will level up and get to that next level and continue on, as long as they want. But a lot of them don't, or they mismanage their career, or they spend all their money, or, they're caught in a platform that dies, right? Like there's so much of that stuff too, where these platforms change initiatives, or suddenly they want short form video and you're a long form creator. So it's very hard. It's very hard. But I will say there's a lot of like stupid articles that come out that are like, what is life after influencing?
Yeah. De-influencing.
I fucking hate these things. They're just so stupid, because it's like and no hate to the journalists. I've written so many stupid articles in my, I'm not saying like the articles themselves are stupid. I'm saying like this concept is just so dumb, because we have over 20 years, people have been in these types of jobs and moved on from them. The primary way that people leave this industry is burnout. That is like the number one thing. And yet that's not ever really discussed when we're talking about a lot of this stuff. I think also what people do is they move into adjacent jobs. You learn so many skills by being a creator. You're a marketer, you're a copywriter, you've run your own business, you're an entrepreneur. Like those are all highly transferable skills. And so it's like, people are like, write these articles like, what does an influencer do? And when they leave influencing, it's like, first of all, half of them are not leaving influencing. They're literally just like slightly pivoting their job where now they're a brand marketer or whatever, or now they work for Google. Or,
I think that's really fascinating. And too, when we combine that with the idea of being a woman on the internet and the idea of like, how long can you be public facing before you get into the Hollywood problem? I also think there's kind of an element of this that strikes me of when you talk about burnout, that there's like a mental health crisis on the internet that there's really no escaping from. Maybe there's an idea that if you're a little bit older, you know how to handle it better. But there is an idea that the kids growing up today, don't really have the resources available to deal with the backlash that they're going to be facing or the scrutiny they're going to be facing. Have you found in your studies that the kids just kind of inherently know that and they just kind of like understand how to be on the internet without revealing too much? Or do you think they're at, big risk?
I think no one knows it until you go through it. And I count myself among that, and I feel like I've been in what is it, like the frog that's boiling in water slowly
getting hotter. Yeah.
It's like been like that since 2009, which is when I started to really be a public internet personality. And until you've seen the worst effect of it, you can't comprehend it. I do think that, again, community is important and having a support system is crucial. But I think it's like we need to start talking about the mental health effects, because people talk a lot about like, oh, being on Instagram makes you depressed. Okay, well, what is getting, your entire family being swatted? What does that do to you? Because what is like, your loved ones being terrorized? Like just when I talk about online harassment, people can't comprehend what it's like. Like these are highly sophisticated smear campaigns, right? I'll give you an example. I was dying because I wanted to write a story for a long time about these bots that people will do. Like on Instagram, you can blast out a message to like thousands of people via bots. When I started at the Washington Post, this bad actor had paid somebody to message every single person, send this insane message that follows me and follows the Washington Post. That was just, slanderous nonsense stuff, but it got written up. And then of course, reporters are dumb as fuck. So they like take that and write it up. And it was so funny because I had seen YouTubers deal with the exact same thing. And I had always thought, oh, that's ridiculous. And going through it myself, I'm just like, wow, how have we not solved these problems?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really funny. My very first experience on the internet with any sort of micro fame balling was involving a story about somebody who's dating Peaches Geldof, and it was about Scientology, and it had Scientologists calling my father. And that was the first time I was ever mentioned in Gawk or anything, but like my family immediately felt the repercussions of it. And I think because of that, I was, 22, 23 at the time, I immediately understood like there is a danger out there to putting any sort of information about yourself. But now I feel like it's now these grassroots campaigns. It's a lot more. It's less like the conspiracy of an organized conspiracy.
Well, it's coordinated. I mean, look, it's the Gamergate playbook, and Gamergate's in my book, as well as this watershed moment on the internet, because it basically created this very easily replicable playbook that legacy media is so woefully legacy media has no idea how to handle any of this. No idea. It's shocking. And not only do they have such a bad idea, they make it worse almost every single time across the industry. And I'm lucky to work at a place that I think has taken steps to learn, but it's very hard to learn unless you go through it yourself. And these are problems that have been pervasive for decades.
So I guess on the flip side of that, creators, I feel like maybe don't actually know that much about how the journalism industry works, because journalism has not done a very good job reaching out to creators and just doing trend stories on them. I mean, what are some things or tips, having worked on both sides of the world here, that creators should know when they're talking to journalists or, trying to have stories written about issues they care about?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so hard for creators because as much downside that comes with working in the media, you have a support system around you and you have this kind of like structure around you, whereas these creators are going through all these things alone. That said, they also don't have employers that don't understand things and make things worse. It's just up to them to make it worse, which, unfortunately many creators accidentally do. I think creators should understand that they are just as much the media as the media. I think there's this notion that the New York Times or New York Magazine or whatever is the media. And as my book argues, that is the old media. And I think we're moving into a world that is dominated by a creator-driven ecosystem. And so I think that they should not accept any kind of disrespect. And I think they should get their own story out, I guess. I mean, of course, this means like every YouTuber is constantly like, I mean, I've dealt with YouTube drama and it's like, you don't need to tell a YouTuber to get their story out. Like they're going to say what they want to say. But I do think, I mean, I speak, especially women and younger creators, I think a lot of them sell themselves short, or they're looking for validation from the traditional entertainment industry. And it's like, I just want to shake them and be like, those people are gone. It reminds me of the reporters that want to be on cable news. And you're like, why do you want to be on cable news? I mean, cable news is totally, it's a big industry, but it's like, blaze your own trail. Like you're young. If I was 22, I wouldn't be trying to get a job in cable news. I would be trying to do stuff on the internet.
It reminds me of the new season of Party Down. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but like the idea is that they were all trying to be actors, and the first season with Adam Scott and Ken Marino, they're caterers by trade. And this season, which takes place like a decade later, a lot of the younger people like don't want to be actors in Hollywood. Like their path trajectory is to go viral, not for the sake of like getting noticed and getting an agent, but for going viral for its own sake. So there's this idea that like maybe there's some recognition that people don't have to work within the traditional institutions, whether that's media, Hollywood, the music industry, and can instead utilize these platforms. I guess my question here is, how much are these platforms less predatory than the traditional systems that they're replacing?
Yeah, I mean, they're just as predatory, if not more. And I think that's why, ideally, as my book argues, we need to build a better internet that gives creators more, ownership and equity and, the ability to kind of control their own destiny and not be reliant on these horrible Silicon Valley creations. But I do think that they're in a better position because it's inherently more, it's broader. The legacy industries and the legacy media, they're small and they're dying and they're kind of crumbling and in disarray. And the tech industry is also a disaster and a clusterfuck, but, at least we have the internet, right? And we still have an open web, and we still have a lot of freedom online that I think a lot of us take for granted sometimes. So
yeah, I mean, I think if you draw like a couple of these themes together, the community aspect, the idea that like the creators have the power here, it's just sort of about organizing. Maybe it's just about like finding out that you're not alone in a bubble dealing with these issues. That if you're getting like a DMCA takedown notices, like 1,000 of them from one guy, you can bet that he's probably also doing that to a bunch of other creators.
Yeah.
That's just as a random example. But I feel like these are the kind of things that people just kind of need to know about. And there doesn't seem to be like a school or class or anything that you can really find out. There's like maybe Reddit subforums. Where can people go to like learn, like get a crash course on
other
how to
than
be
Passionfruit?
Other than Passionfruit.
No, I mean, I think it's very like DIY in the sense like there's so many YouTube videos and guides and sort of things, but it's just about figuring out your own career path and what you like and what you enjoy. And maybe you get into creating music online and make something or whatever, but it's about creativity and free expression. And I think that's the joy of the internet. And also, as my book kind of explains, although these tech platforms do control almost everything in the world, and Silicon Valley tech CEOs don't know what they're doing. And time again, it's actually power users of these platforms that shape the platform and also pioneer really consequential features. And we've seen that when these Silicon Valley execs ignore big creators, which are essentially their power users, their platforms crumble and die. So, I mean, look at Vine and many others. So I think, users have a lot more say in how these tech products are shaped, and we need to make our voices heard.
Yeah. I mean, when I was looking at the stuff sort of tangentially about the Writers Guild strike and all the things they're striking for, I mean, they were so forward thinking when they were coming up with ideas for streaming back in 2007, 2008. I know there was an article recently saying there could never be a creator guild or creator union, but what are your feelings on that? Do you think there's ever a way for people to at least organize?
I totally disagree with that. I think there's always a way to organize. I think organizing is crucial. I think that we need a stronger labor movement in this country, and the only way we're ever going to get anything we want is by organizing and by collective action. And these companies, as my book explains, like they actually are very beholden to their power users. And, that's not to say that everyone should just like quit or go on strike. I think, but there are tons of tactics and there are tons of, organizing strategies that can be used to exert our power, because there's more of us than there are of them,
Yeah, absolutely. I want to circle back a little bit ago when we were talking about the different kinds of communities. How important is mods and the mod sort of scene, or people who do moderation? both on the platform level, but also on the personal community level, people who donate their time to moderate a forum, which I always think is such a thankless job. But
the most thankless job. I know. I think moderation is key, but I really don't like the automated moderation thing. And I think that this whole, I think we're going to look back and just see what a like broken and demented moderation sort of like system this is, because I mean, journalists, like, we rely on free speech and free expression, and we need to be able to talk about things. And I hate this notion that, like, you know, you can't say certain words without your stuff being downranked or something. We need more sophisticated ways to figure out certain types of content. And I very much worry about, you know, I think a lot of these platforms are easily manipulated by bad actors, and a lot of the crackdowns, I mean, this is a famous thing on YouTube, people say like that, you know, most of the YouTube moderation stuff is actually against people in the Middle East or people that are outside the US that are trying to communicate, but that are flagged for terrorism or flagged for insane, you know.
Oh God.
It's a huge problem. And so I just think that, like, we need better systems of moderation. And I think also we need more controls over our own user experience. Most of the time, what people are upset with when they encounter bad content is like, why is this in my feed? Or why, you know, I don't want to see this right now. Sometimes you do want to see everything. Sometimes you want to, like, you know, get involved in something or check something out, right? But like, I think it's allowing users to define their own experience on a platform.
I think that's absolutely correct. I think also, like, moderators probably should, you know, the moderators of certain communities probably it needs to be a paid position. Like, if we're, you know,
yes.
like this kind of thing.
They deserve millions of dollars. Like, let's be real. But yeah. But what I loved about blogs, and I'm a blogger at heart, and I will always be, is that there's no moderators on blogs, you know? And I do believe in free expression and uninhibited expression. That doesn't mean that content should be algorithmically amplified. But I do worry about, you know, these tech companies sort of deeming what's allowed and what's not. Obviously, we need to not allow, like, graphic violence in certain ways, but what they've done to sex workers is really unconscionable. And
yeah, I mean, that's another kind of creator economy, and I feel like that's like one that it feels especially sad about. I took a lift in Austin recently, and I was talking to a woman who, this was her third job in between doing this, being a nurse, and then also having an OnlyFans that brought in $8,500 a year. I mean, sorry, a month, and she could not make her rent because they took such a large portion of that. And there's no accounting for it. Like, there's no group that she can join to, like, help.
We need, but there needs to be that. I just think that when everyone gets together, we need awareness. We need this job to be taken seriously, and people do not take content creation seriously. They don't take this, but it's changing. And I think as people recognize this as a labor issue, hopefully things will change.
Well, as my very last question, let's bring it back up a bit. Who do you think is doing it right now, either as a creator or as a platform or a community space? Are there any examples of people that you think are on the right path besides Passionfruit, of course?
Good question. Oh my gosh. I mean, who's doing it right? I mean, they're all doing it wrong. I am a reporter, so I have critiques of everyone. I mean, I will say I love seeing younger women. There's a girl, Rain Fisher Kwan, who's, I think, so brilliantly talented and an excellent sort of cultural critic and writer. And I think someone like that would have previously been shepherded into traditional media. And I hope that she can really go her own way, because I think there's a lot of people online that if they had gone into traditional media or entertainment, they'll never be able to truly capture the value, you know, of what they're generating. And I hope that through the internet they can,
I'm just going to give a shout out to Who Weekly.
Oh my God, I love Who Weekly. Okay, yes, they are doing it. I mean, Who Weekly was so ahead of the time because they cover pop culture, but they were so good at sort of articulating this mid-level fame, which a lot of online creators have.
They also have 1,000 Facebook groups that have been generated by, like, their fans, and I feel like that's maybe the way.
I'm scared of some of their Facebook groups. They're so intense, but I am a hooligan for life, and they've done a great job with community. And I actually went to their live show in LA recently, and it was so crazy. Like, it was such good energy. It was totally packed.
I love it.
So
Taylor, thank you so much for joining us and being the premier guest on the first of, I hope, many Passionfruit interview series. Please tell us, when is your book coming out?
It comes out October 3rd, but pre-order it, please.
Yeah.
Pre-orders are like key. I've learned in book publishing, so get it now.
Awesome.
I hope you like it.
Well, thank you so much, Taylor, and we'll be seeing you next time.
Yeah.
Well, general you. Thanks, guys.